Music. In contrast to Ringo, who rarely got into trouble, John, who occasionally said harsh things, or Paul, who almost always tried to speak well of the band, Beatles' opinions of their past varied greatly depending on the time period each one was going through. Additionally, the closer the interview was to the Beatles' breakup, the harsher and more critical the remarks were toward their work with the band. When it came to commenting on nearly everything pertaining to the Beatles, Harrison had a very distinct sense of humor and demeanor. He rarely discussed songs that he didn't enjoy, but we made an effort to gather a selection for this video. Music. Downsill forced us to begin with a song that not only Harrison detested John Lennon, but Ringo, who wasn't accustomed to disparaging his own songs, also spoke out against. All three of them opposed its recording, and it was Paul's insistence that it be included on the Abbey Road tracklist. Occasionally, Paul would force us to perform these extremely obscene songs. At one point, Harrison exclaimed, "I mean my God." When Paul had an idea or arrangement in his brain, George and Ringo detested a song in which they were treated like studio players, and Lennon refused to be involved in the recording, labeling it granny music. Maxwell's Silver Hammer was so fruity after a while, but we did a good job on it. Perhaps that detracted from other fantastic songs like All Things Must Pass and My Sweet Lord, which, with more time and zeal, might have been included in Abbey Road. McCartney had his bandmates record and re-record Maxwell's Silver Hammer for days on end. He told Max when the class was over and he stayed behind writing 1,000 lines. Maxwell's Sill was on his head, and he was acting like Silver Hammer. Music. Yet another song that fits the same description as the one before it. A song that was so frequently recorded that his bandmates detested it. Following numerous renditions of the song, McCartney's attempt at re-contributed to the band's weariness during the White Album era. After experimenting with various rhythms and styles, a stone Lennon went straight to the piano and played the opening chords much louder and faster than before. He declared that this was the proper way to play the song and helped it take on its current form when Paul wanted to release it as a Beatles single due to its commercial viability. According to John, George and Ringo, Music, this song was written by Lennon and McCartney, but it was primarily given to George Harr for the album Please Please Me. John himself stated that he wasn't very good as a singer back then, but that he improved over the years, so it was important that he started singing more for the band gradually with simpler songs. The song was labeled as innocent, and George didn't like it. Years later, he complained about the song, claiming that no one ever taught him how to sing. Music. George Harrison stated in 1963 that he records and their egos because it was obvious to him that he was not part of John and Paul's songwriting collaboration. Don't Bother Me was his first official song as a songwriter. In the summer of 1963, Harrison wrote the song while ill in bed in a hotel room. He never thought highly of it and, although he didn't despise it, he wasn't particularly proud of it, saying that on one occasion it wasn't a very good song. Once it was on the album, the song, which could have been a reference to Harrison's frustration and his frequently marginalized jobs within the band, ended up frustrating him even more when it was rejected to be included in the White Album track list. By the time it was recorded, relations within the band were becoming more strained, with members frequently working alone and unable to support one another. For Lennon and McCartney, this was a minor issue, but Harrison needed the band's support for his songs. It's incredible that a song that required so much work didn't persuade John and Paul to include it on the White Album. The Beatles recorded more than 100 takes of Not Guilty, but even the finest of those didn't make the cut. Harrison, annoyed, pushed the song aside and it ended up being a bitter memory for him, who finally recorded it in 1979 for his George Harrison album in a much soft music version, a song that has been on everyone's mind for the last few months and that in a short time will be officially released now and then, was one of the unfinished songs that John Lennon recorded as demos in 1979 and that were given by Yoko Ono to the Beatles to work on in the 90s for their anthology project. This song was to headline Volume 3 of the compilation. Freeze a Bird was released on Volume 1 and Real Love was released on Volume 2. Arguing a background noise that they could not remove, the song was dropped at the last minute and a beginning composed by George Martin replaced it. Although the technology was an obstacle at the time, the real reason the song was not released was Harrison's disinterest. According to McCartney's own words, George Harrison didn't want to do it. It had a very good title but it needed a bit of work. It had nice verses and you could hear John's voice singing it, but George didn't want to do it. He said in an interview, "We started working on but George went off at how rubbish this is and was like, no George, this is John, he's still rubbish, you know." Okay. Music, then already as a video extra, even though it's an album rather than a specific song. Sgt. Pepper's participation was minor. George Harrison didn't like him, and the band rejected his suggestions. The single song on the album, Within You Without You, wasn't to everyone's taste, and even George Martin objected to its inclusion. Harrison wasn't writing Beatles songs at the time. Instead, he was focusing on learning how to play the sitar and ignoring the guitar. He was also on a spiritual quest, and whenever the famous Beatles album was brought up, Harrison showed his complete disinterest. He also once claimed that he didn't like Abbey RH very much. What little is known is that George was hard to talk to and simply wanted to be left alone. That's all for now, but keep in mind that you have the best opinion, so please share your thoughts below. Like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching. This is the Star Beats during the Beatles' heyday. How did your fellow countrymen fare? We had a lot of fun, but we also experienced a lot of pain and suffering together, as everyone knows. We went up and down and round, but at this point in my life, I can look back on it and truly remember the positive aspects of it. Applause.